How did Patrick Mahomes ever get here? He is a Super Bowl MVP and a regular season MVP quarterback before legally being allowed to run a car. He has accomplished more before the age of 25 than most quarterbacks do in an entire career. He already has a 5,000-yard, 50-touchdown season to his name, which is something only he and Peyton Manning have done. But how did Patrick fall to the 10th overall pick back in the 2017 draft? Before we dive into that, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now let's begin. Before Patrick became the face of the NFL, the quarterback of the future, and the savior of the Chiefs franchise, he went through what Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, and hundreds of other future NFL players are going through right now: the draft process. Patrick was described by NFL Network's Lance Zierlein as a low-floor, high-ceiling type prospect, and to say the least, Patrick has been a very high-ceiling quarterback through 3 years of his career. However, there were 9 players taken before him, and some of those players have been very good for their franchises, while others have been very bad. But how did Mahomes ever fall to 10th overall in the first place? If there was a redraft now, the Browns would sprint to the podium to take Mahomes, even though Myles Garrett has 30.5 sacks in only 37 career games. Hindsight is always 20/20, but at the time, Myles Garrett was viewed as a once-in-a-decade type prospect. Coming out of Texas A&M, Myles was measured at 6'4", 272 pounds with 35-inch arms, ran a 4.6 40, 33 bench press reps, and an insane 41-inch vertical. Yes, Cleveland needed a quarterback, but Myles as a prospect was, not pun intended, miles better than Mitch Trubisky, who was viewed as the best quarterback prospect available at the time. Who knows what would have happened to Patrick had he been drafted to Cleveland? For all we know, Patrick could have been just another name that we associate with bad Browns quarterbacks like Tim Couch, Brandon Weeden, and Johnny Manziel. The Bears had the 2nd overall pick through a trade with the 49ers, and everyone knows what happened after this. They selected Mitch Trubisky, and Mitch hasn't worked out, and Bears fans have had to deal with a ridiculous amount of hate because both Mahomes and Deshaun Watson were taken after him. However, at the time, Mitch was viewed as the best quarterback in the draft, as Mahomes was seen as a huge gamble, and to select him at number 2 overall would have been asinine. Mitch was viewed as at worst a game manager with great but not necessarily elite potential. Trubisky completed over 68% of his passes during his final 2 years at North Carolina, compared to Patrick's 64 at Texas Tech. Mitch at the time was the better prospect than Mahomes, and Chicago, though they could have went for a better prospect than a player like Jamal Adams, it made sense for them to take Mitch. They traded up to secure their guy, as we have seen teams do before, and it just didn't pan out. Had this worked for Chicago, then everyone would applaud general manager Ryan Pace for his masterful work back then. Trubisky was a bold pick at the time, as was Mahomes, but the picks by the Bears and the Chiefs couldn't have went more opposite. The 3rd pick was when the 49ers drafted Solomon Thomas, and from what I remember during the whole draft process, I don't think the 49ers were ever really linked to a quarterback. Of course, the media always speculated, but if they truly loved any of the quarterbacks that went in the first round, then they would have drafted him at number 2 overall without fielding any offers like they did from Chicago. This was general manager John Lynch's first draft, and although he swung and missed on Thomas, he more than made up for it later in the draft by drafting, in my opinion, the best tight end in football in George Kittle. The 4th pick in the draft belonged to the Jaguars, who selected running back Leonard Fournette. Believe it or not, at this time, the Jags thought Blake Bortles was their guy. He did reward them by being the quarterback during an AFC Championship game appearance, but he was believed to be their guy during this time period. Leonard Fournette had also been hyped up since high school as the next Adrian Peterson. The selection of Fournette was justifiable at the time because he was believed to help out Bortles' progression and truly be a great running back. The Jags had more than 6 wins just once in the whole 2010s, and it was during Fournette's rookie season. Selecting Leonard over Mahomes was the right pick at the time, and it paid off immediately for the Jags, as they were a Stephon Gilmore deflection away from going to the Super Bowl. The 5th pick was when the Titans selected wide receiver Corey Davis. The Titans not selecting a quarterback here was rather obvious, as Marcus Mariota was drafted 2nd overall in 2015, and he was coming off of the best year of his career. Obviously, having hindsight 2020, we did know that 2016 would be the best year of his career, but he won 8 games as a starter, and there was no way the Titans were going to select a quarterback. That would be near equivalent right now if the Bills took a quarterback, and we know that's just not going to happen. Both Mahomes and Watson at this point in time had to know they weren't going to be drafted by Tennessee. However, what would have been fun would have been a Jamal Adams-Kevin Byard safety duo. Unfortunately, that did not happen, as Jamal Adams was drafted 6th overall by the New York Jets. The Jets selected Jamal Adams, and this was a great pick at the time. Adams was a top 2 or 3 player in this class, and as bad as he was, the Jets had selected Christian Hackenberg the year before in the 2nd round. Drafting a quarterback in the 1st round the following year would have been puzzling at the time, especially with Adams on the board, and who knows how Patrick or Deshaun Watson's career would have went if they were drafted to the Big Apple. The next selection was when the Chargers drafted Mike Williams. The Phillip Rivers we saw in 2019 was definitely not the Phillip Rivers we saw just a few years ago. Prior to this selection, Phillip from 2013 through 2016 threw 125 touchdown passes and threw for over 17,000 yards. There were no signs of him slowing down at all back then, and this selection of Williams was a great pick because it could complement Keenan Allen and take some pressure off of Allen and get less double teams. Like the Tennessee pick at 5th overall, Mahomes and Watson had to have known they weren't going to be drafted here. I don't fault the Chargers at all for making this pick because they were trying to get Phillip another weapon and give him one last shot at a Super Bowl. On paper, had this have worked out, they would have been a very good offense with Phillip, Melvin Gordon, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Hunter Henry. The next pick was when the Panthers selected Christian McCaffrey. The Panthers selecting Christian McCaffrey was an excellent pick then, and it's an excellent pick now. He was an MVP candidate all of 2019, and he is a franchise running back by every definition. The Panthers had Cam Newton at the time, and still do for that matter, and he was just one full season off of an MVP. He was going to be 28 years old during the 2017 season, and there was no reason to select Mahomes. And not surprisingly, Patrick fell further down the draft. The 9th pick was when the Bengals selected wide receiver John Ross. The pick of John Ross, to me at least, was baffling then, and it's still baffling now. By no means do I think they should have drafted Mahomes here, but I thought Ross was way overdrafted. The 4.22 40 earned him a top 10 draft selection, and this is now looked at as one of the draft picks in a while, as not only has Ross been a complete bust, but the face of the NFL was drafted exactly 1 pick behind him. It'd be one thing if the Bengals selected a great player here, because there were plenty of great players in the 2017 draft, but it's another to draft a complete bust, and then for the team directly behind them to draft, if he stays healthy and on the pace he is now, a future Hall of Famer. Had the Chiefs not traded up with Buffalo to get Mahomes, I think the furthest he would have fell would have been 13 to the Cardinals. Mahomes has said in interviews the Cardinals talked to him a lot prior to the draft, and he thought he had a good chance of going there. Mahomes going to the Cardinals and not the Chiefs is certainly a huge what-if scenario, but I think the Chiefs have worked out okay for Patrick and the rest of Chiefs Kingdom. That's all I have for today's video. If you're new to the channel, please like the video and subscribe, and I appreciate the time out of your day watching. And one last little announcement: with the coronavirus spreading and a lot of people, myself included, practically forced to stay indoors, I will be uploading a lot more content within the next few weeks, so you'll definitely want to be around for that. Now anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.